Welcome to Shul.com. We are discussing Parashat Noach and the world of Noach. And the way the world is today we're not the same. The time of Noach had a completely different structure. Throughout this week, I looked at a lot of different Mefarshim, the Midrashim, in order to try to paint a picture. Why wasn't Noach able to convince anybody to come along with him in the Teva? Why did not even one person consider what he had to say? And furthermore, what was the world even like at the time of Noach? So, putting together some of the Midrashim, it seems that the world at the time of Noach was only a one-season world. That the temperature was approximately 70 degrees. It was springtime the entire year. Beautiful weather. Furthermore, the entire landmass, according to at least one of the Mefarshim that I found, was just one island with all the bodies of water around this one island. It was also just a flat plain. There was no mountains and no valleys. The type of conditions in regards to rain, it would rain once every 40 years. When they would plant, they had a tremendous amount of success. Now, it is brought down that the land was cursed, and that sometimes they would plant heta, wheat, and barley would come out, and things like that. But what is also true is that when they did plant, it was much quicker to grow, and the fruit and the produce was tremendously wholesome, large. They also were all vegetarians. There was no one was allowed to eat any type of living creature. There was no rights given for one living creature in order to take the life of another living creature to eat it. That was all granted to Noach after he came off the Teva, along with the seventh mitzvah, which was Eved Min Achai. Now, also in the time of Noach, we have to understand the way the world was. After Adam leaves Gan Eden and he comes into the earth, comes down to earth the way that we see it, Adam and Shet are all live their lives and are tzaddikim after Adam leaves Gan Eden. The rebellion starts to come from the children of Shet. They start to believe in the constellations, in the stars, the galaxies. They look into the skies and they see all these creations of Hashem, and they know that these are the creations of Hashem, and they know of God, but they start to build hechalot, all types of structures made out of stone, in order to worship these constellations and stars, because they are astronomers and astrologers seeking the future and the way the world works through these creations of God. And we know that these creations of God have different types of powers. We say it in the Yotzer on Shabbat, Koach ugvura natan bahem liot moshedim bekerev tevel, that God gave to them Koach ugvura in these types of creation. Liot moshedim bekerev tevel, they control the events on earth. It's called mazal. It's called we call it today luck, but it's like a horoscope of a type. And they were very, very well versed in it. They understood a lot of the way the world functions way better than we even know it today. Today, we have tools at our disposal, but at the truth, if two things are removed from us, we really just go back more than 1,000 years. If electricity and internet is removed from us, we really don't have any knowledge. Back then, they were very well versed on how the world worked. They knew how to live, they knew how to sustain themselves, they knew which things were healthy, were poisonous. They knew how to live and ate and live lives that were 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 years old, with Metushelach living the longest at 969 years. All this is very important to us. There were also giants. And so what happened? Why did these individuals not get convinced? Because they were very knowledgeable in astrology. They knew how to read the stars, and they knew the future. They knew what was happening. In fact, they were very accurate. So accurate that even when Noach is about to be born, Metushelach tells his son Lemech not to name the boy, at least not in the beginning. He knew that this boy was going to be special, and he was worried about Kishufim, from the other individuals, because besides these intelligent people that lived in the time of Noach, they knew how to read astrology, astronomy, knew how to tell the future. They knew about the past. They knew how to even do things that today people don't even believe. like Kifisat HaDerech in the time of Abraham Avinu with Eliezer, where he knew how to take to a distance and to fold the space and time in order to travel long distances in the matter of just a few steps. That was from Abraham and Eliezer. They had this knowledge from before. They knew how to do things that today we don't even understand that this stuff exists. And the Midrashim go very deep into it. So they also knew how to do kishuf. They knew how to do different types of black magic, different types of voodoo, and the stuff worked. The forms of avodah zarah they had was avodah zarah that they worshipped and that resulted in reactions that were very positive and that were true. We're going to go into a Gemara in just a few minutes of Masechet Shabbat, Kuf Nun Vav Amud Aleph, that's going to discuss mazalot. How does that affect our life? Did the rabbis believe in this? Did the rabbis even take any time to discuss the matter? We're going to look into this Gemara. It's a very interesting Gemara, and it's going to be a multi-part series that we're going to try to research this topic of mazalot. How does it work for Am Yisrael? How does it work for individuals, the collective whole, and things of that nature? So when Noach is attempting to build this teva, and even Noach is trying to advertise to everybody that, look, there's going to be a mabul if they don't make teshuvah, and he's not able to get anybody because they're looking up into the stars and they're looking up into the galaxies. They know how the world works. They're very well acquainted with being able to tell the future. And they tell Noach, where do you even see this? And if God is telling this to you, how come it's not coming up? And this, along with many of the other things, affected Noach's ability to believe, to convince them. And even Noach had a belief issue to a certain extent. Noach is a big tzaddik, and we only have good things to say. But even the Chachamim say, Ketanei Amana, to the level that he only got into the Teva when the water started to reach up and come up into him, that even Noach looked up, because Noach knew this knowledge, and even Noach was not able to see it. It was difficult for him. We're going to see in the Gemara that even Abraham had the challenge, because when God told Abraham, hey, listen, you're going to have children, he said, where do you see that? You created the galaxies, the stars, the constellations. I know how to read them, and I see that he saw his mazal Abraham that was not one that was going to be able to produce. So how did this come about? And in the time of Noach, there were even more issues. Noach was a very respected individual. We have to put this out there. His grandfather was Metushelach. He was a very big tzaddik. Everyone knew he was a big tzaddik. He lived the longest anyone lived. It was very well understood that Noach was special. He was born Mahul. He was the third person to be born with a Brit Milah. It was Adam, Shet, then him. There were 7 people. He was the third. He's also born in a very unique way. Every other human species that's around at his time all have fingers that are webbed. All the fingers were webbed. And this, just like there's a little webbed piece on the bottom here, that little leftover piece, this piece was all the way up to the top, according to some of the Midrashim. And the reason why the Midrashim say this is that they called him Noach because they used to farm with their hands. And being that they had webbed hands, it was very difficult for them to farm and to be able to produce food. To whatever extent it was that difficulty. And when Noach came around, he had these new fingers, and he took him to his advantage. He went into the farming business. How did he do the farming business? He started to create farming tools. He used his hands. He was able to craft different types of shovels and tools and equipment in order to be able to farm much easier using tools instead of using their hands themselves. So that made Noach very popular. It made Noach as very intelligent. But they were mivazeh him. The Midrashim bring down that they made fun of him a lot, to the extent where he tried to convince them, but he wasn't going to go out of his way to pray for them. They really tried to put him down many times, and they even tried to kill him. He put himself at risk, and he spent 120 years building something that he believed that God had told him was going to happen, and the other people didn't believe it. And you have to understand, 120 years is a long time. He did it constantly, and he was being constantly berated, and the people were telling him, what mabul? Tell him it doesn't even rain. It rained 3 times in the last 120 years. Because according to one of the Midrashim, it was every 40 years it would rain. Like a rain that would really fertilize all the land, and everything would grow very quickly and beautifully. And when all this happened, they had to, even Noach was questioning it at that point, because he wasn't seeing it in the stars. He seemingly didn't see a lot of rain at all. There was no wild weather. There were no hurricanes. The weather was always beautiful. This type of atmosphere, along with the tremendous amount of knowledge, created an entire generation that began to doubt God, that God didn't even exist. And even if they believed that he did exist, they didn't believe that he wasn't in power anymore because he created all these other instruments that were now controlling all different parts of the earth. They even knew how to be mashbiya, the malachim, that controlled the different types of the atmospheres, or the olamot, the sefirot, the weather patterns. They were able to bring a malach that would swear and change the way nature was. They were very knowledgeable and very powerful. And Noach is trying to convince them, and he's not able to convince them. And he's not going out of his way to pray for them because they were always mivazeh him. My question was, after studying all these things of mazalot and how intelligent they were, and one of the things I picked up is that during the Dor HaPalaga, they did something a little different. You see, in the time of Noach, they didn't rebel against God. They didn't believe in him to the extent that of who he was, who God was. But in the time of the Palaga, they actually grouped up together to fight God and made that their mission. That was mission number one on their statements that they were making out to everybody. So what happened between the two here? And why did God destroy the generation of Noach, not the generation of the Dor HaPalaga? So when it came to the Dor of Noach, the thing that annoyed God the most was the immorality and the theft. These two things was enough because the people were fighting amongst themselves. They were not being honest with themselves. They were stealing from each other. That was enough that God decided it's not worth it for me to keep these people around. And Elohim shel elu sonei zimah is what Bilam told us. And that was regards to us. It's regards to God in that sense. He doesn't like that. And when it came to the form of Avodah Zarah, or to even challenging God and saying they're going to build a tower, when God saw that they all had achdut, they were all together and unified, God allowed them a lot of success in what they were doing, and only was mebalbel otam in their languages and started to confuse them in their languages, only in order to prevent it from happening. But they were not punished in the way that the generation of Noach, even though the generation of Noach didn't have a mission to kill God, or to Chas v'Shalom even say that, but even to fight him. That was never out there for them. It was only the Dor HaPalaga that attempted this. But because they were unified, this actually says an unbelievable message that God really wants unification. He wants the people to be together. He values this on a very, very high level, to the point where he will destroy the world when people are not respecting each other, and he will allow the world to continue even if they doubt him or challenge him, if they are unified. It's an unbelievable message that Hachamim bring down. So my question is, how did the Hachamim, what did they think about these things in Mazalot? Did they believe in them? Is Israel above it? Is it not? How does it work in regards to individuals? Let's take a look. It's an unbelievable Gemara. We're in Masechet Shabbat. It's in 156 Amud Aleph. M'shem Hashem na'aseh v'nasiach. So let's take a look at this Gemara. It's really interesting. And we're going to spend a lot of time Bezat Hashem over the next couple of days looking into all these questions. Amar lehu Rabbi Hanina. Rabbi Hanina tells the students, Puku amaru lebar leva'eh. He says, go out and tell the son of Leva'eh. Lo mazal yom gorem, illa mazal sha'a gorem. So the discussion is what controls the nature and the life of a person? Is it the mazal of the day of the week that he's born, or the mazal of the hour of the week that the hour of the day that he's born? Now, before we continue here, this is important. There was a speech given here in the Young Israel at Bell Harbor when Rabbi Mansour came a couple of years back during Yeshiva week in January, and he presented a question of why is there 7 days a week, trying to prove it was only a biblical source for it. But that's not necessarily the only source. There's quite a few sources. The basic source from the point of view from the Gentiles and from the other nations of the world is that there are 7 constellations visible from Earth that one can see, like the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Venus, Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, whichever ones they are, the 7. I don't have them all in front of me, but I believe those are the 7. And they're under Shatzam Chanchal, which the Gemara talks about it. Shatzam Chanchal is an acronym for all the planets. So these 7 are the only ones that are visible from planet with the naked eye, and that therefore they have 7 days of the week that are named after them. Sunday the Sun, Monday the Moon, Tuesday is I believe Mars, or like Martes in Spanish. Then you have Wednesday. They have Venus, Merculus, Venus like for Venus, Merculus for Mercury, and Saturn would be Shabbat, Saturday for Saturn, and each one of these days is equal to one of the planets. So the 7 days of the week are the ways that that we converse with them, and this is what they believed in. All the nations of the world believed that these different constellations were controlling days of the week, and that they had a certain power. Sometimes we don't even realize that we calling the names of the week according to the way that they had their gods and according to what they believed. Because according to the Torah and according to the Tefillot, the way that we have the days of the week is Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi'i. It has it in numbers, just like you have the Chodashim. According to the Torah, the Chodashim are only numbered. The month names that came when we were in Galut. It came from Paras and Madai. We took it from the Persians, and if you actually look, a lot of the Persian months that they have actually the same names that we have. Nisan is a name of the Persians. You could look that up. It's very, very interesting, and we're going to get into that, God willing, in the future. So now that you know that there's 7, and the way it works on days is every day has one of these constellations. It's not exactly the way that Sunday is sun, Monday is moon. Leave that. That's not actually how it works. It's every single day of the week during the days of the month are different constellations, and then every one of the hours of the day, there's 24 hours, but 7 constellations. So 7, 14, 21, and then it interchanges. It continues to go. So there's like a whole calendar and a whole list in some of the books that you could see that gives you each hour, each day, so you can figure out where your birthday is and how that works. But let's now that you know the 7, let's discuss how it works. So there's an argument here. The argument is it the day of the constellation, or is it the hour that the constellation? So let's begin. He says, Hayman dev Hamas. Let's say somebody is born when the hour is the sun, that it has its power. Yehe Gevar Zivtan. He says it's a person that's going to be very illustrious. It's going to be a very outwardly noticeable person, someone that has that look, that special quality of like a sun, always being bright. He's going to eat from himself and drink from himself. What does that mean? It means that he's going to be financially well off. He's going to be able to feed himself. He's going to be able to take care of himself. Doesn't need from anyone. But all of his secrets, everything about this guy, everyone knows about it. He can't keep anything to himself. It never works out. And this is kind of like the way the sun is. The sun and the star. The sun is a big star, a small star that's in the sky, and it can't keep to itself. Everyone looks outside. The sun is very visible. It's all out there, and it can't hide himself. Now here, im ganiv lo matzlach. The Gemara tells us if he tries to be a thief and steal, he'll never be successful, because all of his secrets are always revealed. Now it discusses if the hour of the day is a different planet. Hayman de bechochav noga. Let's say it's in the kochav of Noga. It's not talking about the star, the kochav is talking about the planet. And Noga is Venus. Let's say Venus is at its peak on that hour. Yehe gevar atid v'zana yehe. So there's going to be a person that's an atid, ashir, very rich, v'zana yehe, but unfortunately promiscuous along with that wealth. My ta'ama, the Gemara asks, what's the reason for that? Mishum de ityelid benura. Because when it comes to Venus, it has a fire, flames coming out of it. Maybe it's volcanoes. Something from Venus has a fire and flame, just like the fire of passion for promiscuity. Let's take a look at this. Hayman de Bekochav. Let's say someone's born during the hour of Mercury. Kochav over here is not star, it's discussing Mercury. Yehe Gevar Nahir Hakim. He'll be a radiant person and a wise man. So he's going to be a person that is has that radiance to him, he has that hand to him, and he's also very intelligent. Mishum de Safra de Chamahu. He says, why? Because Mercury is the second, like the secretary to the sun. It's the secondary planet, or the close planet to the sun. Therefore, it gets a lot of that radiance from the sun, and he gets that intelligence. So he has a lot of blessing. Someone born in the hour of Mercury has only good things, radiance, and he's wise. Hayman de Bilvana. How about somebody born during the hour of the moon? Yehe Gevar Savil Mar'in. It's a person who's going to have a lot of lo alenu suffering in his life, in afflictions. Ben bana'eh v'sater. Things that he'll build will end up being raised and taken down. Satir ubana'eh. Things that are raised will end up getting built. Akhir delo dile v'shater delo dile. He unfortunately he'll eat from things that are not his and drink from things that are not his own. Meaning, unfortunately, he has a hard time even with his parnasa. V'razohi kasyan. But all of his secrets, they remain concealed. Nobody knows a lot about this guy. He's able to keep a lot of secrets. Im ganav matzlach. If he's a thief, he'll be successful. That's very interesting. Hai man de beshabbetai. What about the person that is born in the hour of Saturn? Saturn is Shabbat. Yehe gevad machshavate betelin. That every one of his plans that he tries to do, not successful. Ve'ita amre. Well, the Gemara says, hold on a second. No, that's not what it means. Kol demchavshvin ale betelin. It says every plan against this guy doesn't come to fruition. So that could be a great thing, actually. Anyone trying to go against him doesn't succeed. All right. Hai man de betzedek. What about someone born in Tzedek, which is Jupiter? Yehe gevar sadkan. He's going to be a person of sidkut, of rectitude, of good things. Amadam Nachman bar Yitzhak. Rav Nachman says, "V'sadkan b'mitzvot." He's going to be a person that's going to be very big in the mitzvot. He's going to do a lot of tzedakah, hesed. Hai man de b'ma'adim. He said, what about someone born during the hour of Mars, Ma'adim? Yehe gevar ashed dema. He's a person who's going to spill a lot of blood. Amar Rabbi Ashe. So Rabbi Ashe says, I umana, I ganava, I tabacha, I umuhala. He said he's going to do something in the realm of life that involves blood. It could be either a bloodletter, or today that could be maybe a doctor, a surgeon, a thief who steals. And let's take a look at what it says here. Unfortunately, it says here a thief, someone that steals and kills people. It could be either a shochet, it could be someone who slaughters animals, or mohil, he does circumcision, or different things in the realm of working with blood. Amar Rabbah said, Ana b'ma'adim havai. Rabbah was saying, I was born in Mars, and I'm not any of those things. Amar Abaye tells him, Nami anish v'katil. He says, yeah, but you also punish people and you kill them when you're doing that. When you punish people with the law, or with the Beit Din, or with a ruling, it could sometimes cause them to get killed. And therefore, it is true. Let's take a look what he says here. It says here on the bottom, or Yasha suggested Abaye offered two responses. First, that Rabbah punishes those who violate his rulings. And second, that Rabbah killed Rabbi Zera, and then through his prayers brought him back in the celebrated incident in Masechet Megillah, Daf Zayin 7b. So that's very interesting. That was the story when Rabbah killed Rabbi Zera when he invited him to have the Seudah on Purim, and then he prayed that he comes to Hayat HaMetim. The next year he invited him to come again. He told him, no, it's okay, I'm not coming again. Okay, very nice. Itmar, Rabbi Hanina Omer, Mazal Mahkim. So now the Gemara is going to a little bit of a different discussion. Rabbi Hanina says that the Mazal determines the person's intelligence, if he's going to be a Hakim, a Hacham. Mazal Ma'ashir. And the Mazal is determining if a person is going to have wealth, financial wealth. V'yesh Mazal Israel. And there is Mazal over Israel, and it cannot be changed. And when he means that there's Mazal to Israel, you could look at Rashi, V'yesh Mazal Israel, she'en tefila utztaka mishane et mazal. That he holds, Rabbi Hanina, that even tefila and tztaka, it cannot change that mazal, according to Rabbi Hanina, so far. Let's take a look at some other opinions. Rabbi Yohanan Amar. Rabbi Yohanan says, in Mazal Israel, there isn't mazal. Okay. Ve'azda Rabbi Yohanan ta'ameh, the Amar Rabbi Yohanan, minayin she'in Mazal Israel. So now it's asking from Rabbi Yohanan, how do we know there's no Mazal Israel? Shnei Emad, like it says, Ko Amar Hashem el derech hagoyim al tilmadu umeotot hashamayim al techatu ki yechatu hagoyim mehema. So he says, I'll read to you from it says the English, that Ko Amar Hashem, Hashem says, do not adopt the ways of the nation, and do not fear the signs of the heavens, and for the nations fear them. Meaning, the nations fear them because they understand the signs of the heavens and they see the future. But you don't need to. Don't adopt their ways because you are above them. Hem yechatu velo Israel. They should fear, but not Israel, because you are above them. Now, this entire argument is regarding Am Yisrael as a whole nation, not on the individual basis. Let's continue. Ve'af Rav savar in Mazal Israel, and Rav too holds that the Mazal doesn't control any part of Am Yisrael. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Minayin she'en Mazal Israel. How do we know that there's no Mazal to Israel? Shnei Amar. He brings a different pasuk now. Vayotze oto achutza. Amar Abraham Difnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Abraham said to God, Ribono shel olam, master of the world, Ben beti yoresh oti. He said, this guy Eliezer is the one who's going to inherit me. Amar lo lav. He said, no. Kim asher yitzeh me'echa. It says the person that's going to come out of you. Amar lefanav Ribono shel olam. Abraham said, Nistakalti be'itztagenut sheli. I already checked my astrology. I know how this stuff works. You know that I know how it works. And it shows that it's not possible for Abraham to have any boys. Amar le. He tells him, go outside. There's no mazal to Israel. He said, don't worry about it. You can leave it. And let's take a look what he says here. Rashi says, he brings down, and from the Asara Ma'amarot, that he took him out from the whole sky or the firmament in order to go above it to show him that he was above it. My da'atich, what do you suppose? He says that Jupiter, which is the hour that Abraham was born, is situated in the west side of the Ma'arav. And so that's why he was unable to have any children. He says, I will move it for you to the east. Maybe it's interesting. Maybe that's why they called Abraham Eitana Izrachi, that he was from the east. Obviously, I know he was an Oriental and he came from the eastern part of the land. But maybe another reason could be is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took his mazal from the Ma'arav and he brought it to the east. I'm looking at the notes at the bottom. It says the east is the warm region. This demonstrates that according to Rav, the celestial signs hold no sway over the Jewish people. That is, although Abraham's ability to sire children is still controlled by his sign, nevertheless the sign itself may be changed by divine intervention. It's interesting because they're giving a proof of in Mazal Yisrael from Abraham, not from Yaakov. So that's interesting. V'hainu dichtiv. And it says, Mihe'ir mimizrach sedek yikra'eu leraglo, and it brings a pasuk that who awoke Sedek, Mihe'ir mimizrach Sedek, from the east, Sedek, which is Jupiter, that which is Abraham Avinu, Yikra'eu leraglo. He summoned it, he moved it because of him. Very nice. Umid Shmuel nami in mazal Israel. Okay, Shmuel now also says in mazal Israel. That also when it comes to Israel, it doesn't control him. The Shmuel v'Avlet havu yatve. So Shmuel and Avlet are sitting down. Who is Avlet? Avlet is a non-Jewish intelligent guy, wise man. He's an astrologer, and we already know that Shmuel used to know like the roads of Surah and Pumpadita, like he knew all the stars in the galaxies. It's brought down in another Gemara. So we know that these two individuals both know their stuff, and that they were both sitting together. Maybe they were talking about astrology, astronomy. I don't know. Let's take a look what was going on. Fahavu ka'azle hanach inshe le'agma. There were a group of men, and they were going to a swamp to cut some reeds. Amar le Avlet le Shmuel. So Avlet, the non-Jewish wise man astrologer, tells Shmuel, Hay gavra azil velo ate. Says this man is going out, but he's not coming back. Tarik le chivya umayet. He says a snake is going to come and bite him, and he's going to die. So it must be a venomous snake is going to come out and catch him. Now it must mean that this guy Avlet either knew this guy or knew his mazal or knew his name with his mazal and knew how to figure out right away when he was born and what was happening. Now let's take a look. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says to Avlet, I bar Israel hu, if he's Jewish and he's from Israel, azil va'ateh. He'll go and he'll come back. It's not good. The mazal has no control. The mazal that you're looking at doesn't have control over that guy. So while Shmuel and Avlet was still sitting there, the guy, after a while, came back. Come Avlet shadil tune. Avlet got up right away, and he went to the guy. The guy was carrying a bunch of reeds on his back. He pulled off all the reeds from the back of the guy. So he took apart all the reeds because he wanted to know. Avlet wants to understand himself. He says, I know my knowledge of mazalot. I know I was right. I checked it out. There must be something here that went wrong. Let's take a look. So he runs to the guy to take the reeds. He pulls them all off, and he discovers that there was a snake that's there, but the snake is cut in half. So seemingly when they were cutting the reeds, or when this guy was cutting the reeds, and he had chopped up the snake and killed it, and then put the reeds on top, and the snake died, and he saved himself from being killed. Had he just cut the reeds with the snake inside and put it on his back, the snake would have bit him. Amar de Shmuel. So Shmuel tells him, my avat. He tells him, what'd you do? So interesting, Shmuel knows and believes that the actions of a person can change what was determined in his life. And he asks him what he did. Amarle, he tells him, he says, every day we all go out together as a group, and we all put all of our food together, and we eat it. So everyone brings some lunch from home. We put it all in the basket, we share it, we eat, and we enjoy. And everyone brings something. Yeah, maybe one day one guy brings cucumbers, one guy brings some bread, one guy brings tomatoes, one guy brings some eggs, and suddenly they all put it together, they have a nice meal, they enjoy. Ha'idna, this time, Ha'id, like from the word, like in Arabic, Eid, the holiday, the time, Ha'idna, Hava'ika, Chad minan de lo hava le rifta. He said, today while we were walking, I noticed one of my friends didn't have a piece of bread with him. And I noticed that he was the only one empty-handed walking to work, and I realized that this guy doesn't have anything. Hava kam mikasef. And I noticed that he was getting a little fidgety, a little embarrassed from these. He noticed that lunchtime was coming, and he knew that they're going to have to all collect from everybody and put it into the basket, to serve. Amina lehu. So right away I paid attention to what was happening. This guy was sharp, this Jewish guy. And he jumps up. Ana aka'imna va'armina. He says, I'm getting up today. Let me collect the bread. Let's collect the food that we need to serve from everyone today. I'll take care of it, guys. Ki ma'ate legabe, when I reached that person, shavai nafshai keman deshkili mineh. I pretended like I collected from him what he gave for the day, and I made it up with whatever I brought extra. I had some stuff with me. I put in everything. I sketched everybody. I made it look like I was taking something from him, and I just put it into the basket and I served. Hechi delo likasif, so that this guy, he doesn't get embarrassed. Hazid, I don't want this guy to get embarrassed. Amar le, Shmuel told him, mitzvah avat, you did a very good deed. That's a real, true act of charity. Now, what was he talking about? Was he talking about the charity of the food, or was he talking about the charity of saving the guy from the embarrassment? He was talking about, let's take a look. He has here at number 10. He brings another note. But this charity was not only the tzedakah, it was that he saved the guy from the embarrassment. That was the charity. He saved his blood from being spilled or being embarrassed. If somebody is embarrassing somebody, and they saved his blood. Nafak Shmuel b'darash, and Shmuel from then on would make a dirasha with this guy's story, with the whole situation of Avlet. He would tell you guys, I have a personal story, I got to share this with you. You won't believe what happened. I was sitting with this guy Avlet. The guy was going out, he came back, we found the snakes, and he was good up, and he would always say, he would always quote, like it says in Mishleh 10-2, and tell everyone, look, the guy did tzedakah. The tzedakah not only with money, he also did tzedakah from not embarrassing the guy. And not just from a mita mishuna, asma. Meaning, some people might say, it's from a mavet that's a mishuna, like a lo aleinu, a car accident or something, where a person dies in a freak accident. He says, no, it's even real mita. Giving tzedakah and charity is real mita, and the tzedakah and charity here was giving food, feeding somebody that was hungry, and also preventing him from getting embarrassed. And let's take a look at the bottom. He says here in the notes, do not say that if a person is supposed to die, the merit of his charity will ensure that he dies a normal death. Rather, charity spares him from even dying himself, as Rashi brings down. And the Gemara in Bava Batra 10a seems to have a different opinion. It says there the Gemara does interpret this verse to say that charity saves from an unusual death, and that Maharsha reconciles the two Gemariyot, the two things. If a person has lived out his allotted time and he must die, the merit of charity will prevent him from dying an abnormal death. However, if his time is not yet up, but his life is still threatened, charity will rescue him from death and grant him life. That's a nice note that they put on the bottom. Let's continue. Umede Rabbi Akiva nami in mazal Israel. So Rabbi Akiva also says there's no mazal to Israel. So we have a lot of the Hachamim saying there's no mazal, unlike Rabbi Hanina. Okay, the Rabbi Akiva havya le berata. Rabbi Akiva had a daughter, Amre le Kalda'e. One of the astrologers had informed him. The Kalda'e is actually from the Chaldeans. They were a group of people, but they were good astrologers. He tells him, Hahu Yoma de Aila lebe Genava. He says the day that the Genana, the day that she's going to go to become a bride, into the chamber of becoming a bride. Tarik la chivya umita. That a snake, or maybe a venomous snake, is going to bite her and that she's going to die. Chivya here, a snake. Hava de'iga amilta tuba. When Rabbi Akiva heard this, it concerned him. Maybe he believed the Kalda'i, maybe he knew he was knowledgeable, maybe this guy was a good astrologer. Hahu yoma shekalta lemachbanta. Says on the day that she was getting married, she was removing from her hair what they translate here as a brooch. She had something in her hair, brooch. Datsta biguda. She took it off and she stuck it right into the wall. Iterame ite be'ine de chivya. And when she did it, without even knowing, she pierced the eye with the brooch of the snake and killed the snake. The safra, in the morning, kishaka shaklala, when she took out the brooch that she put in, hava kasarich be'ate chivya batra. When she pulled it out, and the snake came along with it, and she realized she killed the snake. Amar la abuha, her father saw that. She must have showed it to him. My avad. He asked her, what did you do? See, again, Rabbi Akiva, Shmuel, they know that when someone's saved, they know that they were saved, and they see that they were saved from some miracle or some attack or something. They know that they were saved. That means they did something good. They did a good zechut. They had something that tipped the scale in their favor. They didn't say, oh yeah, it's just your luck or whatever. It's interesting to note that. My avat, Amrade, she says to him, Befanya ata anya kara baba. She said, I think it's yesterday in the afternoon while everyone was getting ready for the wedding, some like poor guy came to the door, a baba, like in Arabic bab, the door, fahavu teride kule alma bisudata. And everyone was busy, you were busy, mom was busy, everyone was busy with setting up the hall and the food, and they didn't pay attention to this guy that's at the doorway that's yelling he's hungry. No one heard him. Ka'imna shekalti leditztenai dihavit li. So I get up, I took whatever they gave me, shekalti, whatever they gave my portion, and I gave it to this guy. Yahavte nihade, and I gave it over to him. Amar la, Rabbi Akiva tells his daughter, mitzvah avat, you did a very good deed of tzedakah there. Nafak Rabbi Akiva v'darash, and then Rabbi Akiva would get up and be doresh, u'tzedakah tatzil mavet, and he would say that tzedakah saves a person from actually dying, v'lo mimita mishuna, not from a unusual death, ela mimita atzma, from actual death. Let's continue. Umiderav Nachman bar Yitzchak nami en mazal Israel. Now we're continuing. Rav Nachman says there's no mazal to Israel. The ime de Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak amre la Kalda'eh. Another Kalda'eh. Looks like these Kalda'im, they love annoying the Jewish people and giving them pessimistic information. But this other Kalda'eh went to the mother of Rav Nachman. Berech Gennava Hava. So he tells her, Berech, your son, he's going to be a big thief. He's going to be a thief, that guy. Lo shevakte galuye reshe. So she figured out a segula, how to prevent him from being a thief. Amrade, she told him, Kase reshech ki hechi teheve alach imta dishmaya. She told him, cover your head, and by covering your head, there's going to be fear of Yirat Shamayim on your head, and it's going to be upon you, it's going to save you. And this is one of the, by the way, this is one of the proofs of covering a head for a child, and of course for an adult. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. You take a look at the notes. It says here, this is the source of the practice of wearing a kippah, and he brings down the Orah Hayim 2-6. Now it says it was not uncommon, which means it was common for adults in the Talmudic era to wear a head covering. However, it was unusual for children to do so. And he brings down a bunch of proofs. So it says that maybe as an adult they covered their head, but not the kids themselves. But she was mahmir to do it for her son as a sigula, that he does not become a thief. Uv'e rahameh. And what else did she do? She would also pray for the Hamim from Shamayim that he should not become a thief. Lo hava yada amai ka'amra la le. Now he never knew why his mother he would be the only kid in school, I guess, in preschool, Jewish kid, that had a kippah on, yarmulke. Nobody else had it, only him. And he always paid attention that she was always praying for him, that he should become a tzaddik, he shouldn't become a thief, and he should have Yirat Shamayim and be protected. Yom Echad, one day, Yativ ka garis tute dikla. He was sitting down under a palm tree, enjoying that nice shade. Nafal glima me'ilave reshe. And a cloak, glima, fell off of his head. Meaning the head covering that was covering on his head, it fell off. Dale ene chazad ledikla. So he lifted his eyes up. Now that the kippah fell, he lifted his eyes up, and he was looking at the palm trees, and he noticed some of the fruits on the palm tree. Al-me yitzre. His yetzer hara grew and overpowered him. Salik paske lekibura bishine. And he went up, he climbed up the tree, he chopped off some dates with his teeth, and he brought them down to eat them and enjoy them. And let's take a look at the notes on the bottom. He says here the palm tree wasn't his, and therefore it's stealing, as Rashi brings down. Therefore, we see that Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was destined to really be a thief, but the prayer, and by changing his mode of how he dresses to have more, to be more tsanua, and to cover his head with a kippah, changed his destiny. And by doing it from, it's brought down here, it says if the Megadim Hadashim suggests that this episode happened when Rav Nachman was as a child, before he had a chance to overcome his inborn nature. Wow, very interesting. So we see from here that a person can overcome his mazal through work. We see that even when it came to the mazal of Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, the mother was able to pray through different methods of tefillah and also modesty, covering his head. It says covering his head. It could be with anything. It could be covering his head with a baseball cap. Just as long as his head was covered, that Yirat Shamayim was there. And the boy didn't even know why it was being done. So you don't even have to say it. Just by doing it in and of itself, it helped. And we see the value of giving food at the people that are hungry as a tremendous mode of tzedakah, along with helping aniyim, and in the first case of preventing someone from getting embarrassed, and what the value is. So this is an unbelievable Gemara. It shows us that Am Yisrael is above the mazal, both on the collective nature and plurality, on the entire nation, and we're above the nature, above the mazal, even on an individual basis, but through a lot of tefillah and a lot of hard work of doing very difficult things, even things like a modesty, but because they're difficult and they're challenging and we overcome them, this allows we did something difficult, Hashem does the same thing with the mazal and erases it and puts us above it. It's unbelievable. We're going to hopefully go in and study this a little bit more. B'ezrat Hashem, Shavua Tov, Beracha v'Hatzlacha, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen.